Hey there, guys. It's Sage Armageddon coming to you. Not with a Yu-Gi-Oh video this time. I wanted to try to do something a little bit different. See, I wanted to discuss a game that is pretty near and dear to me, but it's a game that has been heavily critiqued, is putting it kindly. It's a game that has been, I would, for lack of better terms, say has been thrashed about and thrown abroad land like a fish out of water and left to starve and rot, right? And the game that I'm going to be talking about today is Starfield. Now, Starfield is pretty much a trigger word. You bring that up, there's going to be pretty much a flame war of people saying that other people are coping for thinking that the game is good and loading screens and this and that and everything else, right? But I wanted to bring up some specific points about Starfield. This is not scripted. This is not a review. Just to preface that, this is going to be completely off the cuff. If you guys would want to see anything that is more organized, such as a review or a more put together discussion pointing certain things out about the game, I can definitely do that. But this one's going to be pretty much off the cuff, just my thoughts on it, right? Now, I have been looking into not only Starfield, but I've been looking into games in general and discussing them for over a decade. And no, I'm not just talking about playing games. I am an ancient of days when it comes to playing games. I've been playing games since as early as probably 92, when I was old enough to actually be able to hold a controller and things of that nature. So I've been playing games for a long time, right? But in terms of discussing games, I've been, tracking certain trends and things of that nature, all the way since games like Dragon Age Inquisition, right? Like over 10 years ago at this point. And I've gotten more adept when it comes to having discussions with people, looking at things from multiple different angles, gathering data, trying to find objective information and not be guided by confirmation bias and things of that nature. So, after having all of these different discussions with people, I was able to find out a lot of different things. Now, I don't want to go too much into things and get off topic, but pretty much what we're talking about here, of course, is Starfield in general. But the reason why I bring up my history of this type of thing is I've noticed that there are certain games, and certain games tend to go under the radar a lot more, and this trend is getting worse and worse as time goes on. For example, there are a lot of people that mention, "Oh, Starfield is bad. It's objectively bad. If you like this game, you're coping, and you have low standards, and this and that and the other." Some other jargon that is very commonly stated is, these games A, B, C, and D have do everything better than Starfield. These developers have completely surpassed them. And I just think about it. I'm like, people treat these games the way that they treat each other in real life. It's very strange. They're constantly competing with each other and not being able to sense individual value that a person could potentially have that allows them to stand out, right? And I think this is kind of primitive thinking for the human race in general. We will never be able to truly evolve any closer to any utopia as long as people keep thinking in terms of competition. Competition can be great. Yes, it can be very helpful if it is a controlled competition and if it has a positive specific purpose. But the difference between this competition and what people allegedly treat it as more like back in the olden days when they would have gladiators fighting to the death and everybody would be cheering over it. That's the kind of competition that people do nowadays. No mercy, death match, no holds barred type of thing, instead of more of a friendly competition like you would have two friends do. Say, hey, let's race and see who can win, and then one person loses, and then they give each other a high five and they keep it moving, right? That's the type of competition we should be having more often than not. Not gladiator battles, right? Not death matches, right? But I digress. If you're struggling to understand my point, it's this: You know, they always compare Starfield to things like The Witcher, to The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, which is strange because people beat the living crap out of that game. I was there when everybody was saying the game was objectively bad and all that stuff. I was there. I remember. I have a long memory, right? You know, Baldur's Gate 3, you know, these types of games. And they always say that Bethesda is behind these developers when it comes to certain things. But with me, I like to set parameters. If you just say something in a broad spectrum, it doesn't really make any sense. If you just say that game A is better than game B, it, especially in this triple A environment, it just don't make sense. That doesn't make sense, right? How you make sense out of that is you set parameters. Why are these? What makes these games better than Starfield or the one Bethesda is doing? What about it? I can tell you, as somebody that likes Starfield, I am not biased, right? It's the same thing when I'm power scaling characters and stuff like that. I have characters that I like, but if Goku gets his crap pushed in by another character from a different fandom, and I know I'm gonna tell you the truth. Goku gets bodied, right? It's not. I'm not gonna try to find a way to make Goku win. That's not the way that I roll. I'm trying to find the truth of things. Starfield gets absolutely demolished in quite a few areas when it comes to choices and permutations. For example, Baldur's Gate 3 absolutely diarrhea, doodle dog waters the freak out of this game. It's not even close, like not even remotely close, right? And I got no problem with saying that, right? When it comes to characters, now that's a little bit more subjective because I like Starfield characters better than Baldur's Gate 3, but I have specific reasons for that more than not. But when it comes to the characters having a more chaotic feel to them, more flip floppy, more prone to going from dark to light, light to dark, etc. Baldur's Gate 3 companions are quote unquote deeper when it comes to that specific thing, right? Starfield companions pretty much don't even have a darkness arc, right? So it's I can understand that. You see how we're setting parameters? It's starting to make more sense now what we're talking about. Writing, like what about the writing? If we're talking about the level of technique, who wields the pen closer to Rey Palpatine versus somebody wielding a pen like Anakin Skywalker or Obi-Wan Kenobi, if the pen was like a lightsaber or something like that, in terms of you know how big your PhD is and how like skilled you are at coming up with all of these different high level techniques of writing and stuff like that, then yeah, you could probably say Baldur's Gate 3's writing is superior in that regard, right? So those are some examples. If we were to go to The Witcher obviously has more darkness to it, has more negative energy. It has more that your choices have more of an impact on the story. Characters die and stuff like that. They're based upon your choices a lot more. Different endings, etc. All that stuff, right? So the side quests having their own cutscenes and presentations and things of that nature. And just the way the characters are. And the presentation in general just destroys any game Bethesda has ever made, right? Like the Witcher 3 is at this point almost a 10-year-old game, about 9 years old at this point, right? And its presentation just completely dog waters like any Bethesda game, right? But that's exactly the point that I want to make, is that there are these RPGs that people name definitely have areas that they doo-doo on Starfield or any Bethesda game in, right? But the opposite is also true. There are things in Starfield that just completely annihilate some of these other games. There are things that Bethesda does that annihilates these other games, and that should give them some type of value. Now, if people don't like these specific things, that's fine. This isn't supposed to convince you that you need to like Starfield and things of that matter. It's just to help get an understanding of the situation. This is more of a situation of preference and what people want to see in RPGs than Bethesda being behind and not being good enough or low quality or things of that nature. They just do things differently. That's all. they have a different approach to how they play this little RPG game, right? So some people are like, what are the things that Starfield does that are so good and this and that and the other and stuff like that. The first thing I want to preface is that the thing that Bethesda does well more than anyone else in the AAA RPG department, at least, is that they do everything. The things that they do aren't the highest level and they don't push the bar as hard as other games. There are games with better crafting, there are games with better shipbuilding, there are games with better outpost building, right? There are games with better quest designs, there are games that are more interactive and things of that nature, but none of these do it all together quite like Bethesda does. If so, they are super under the radar, and I haven't heard of them, which means they're probably not a AAA in the first place, right? That's the parameter that I set. There are too many games to just speak with absolute certainty, but in the AAA upfront space, Bethesda is singular. They are very unique in their approach to how they do these games, and that in and of itself gives them value, correct? At least that's the way I would see it. Like, for example, like some of the things that I mentioned, being able to build your own outposts and ship in an RPG that is in the background is crunching infinite times beyond infinite number of variables, probably more variables than the freaking universe has freaking stars in it, number of permutations that they have to consider during the game, like when the game is running in the background. You have all of these different systems working in tandem and stuff like that, and how they impact you when your character has this many stats for strength and that many stats for dexterity, etc., etc., right? So back to the main point of what I'm talking about, like, just being able to go on to these random planets and moons, and virtually any empty space anywhere on that planet is capable of harboring something that you create. Think about that. Damn near, I haven't tested it enough to know if there are limits, if the game hard caps you and says you can only create this many items, but as far as I am currently aware of, you're virtually unlimited in how much crap you can create across all of these stars and systems and things of that nature, right? So you can just have outposts like virtually anywhere at any time, and these outposts will have their own storage units, their own NPCs and events to track in general, while you're out there on another side of the freaking galaxy doing God knows what, right? Getting married to Sarah Morgan or gunning down Valrune smugglers or something of that nature, right? Completely in a different hemisphere, and all of this other stuff is happening, and the fact that the game is primed to be able to handle that capacity is a game in and of itself. So, when people say that there's no depth to this game, that other RPG studios are just completely destroying them in terms of the competition, it's just, and people wonder why Bethesda don't listen. Oh, Bethesda doesn't listen to what we're saying and stuff because what people are saying don't make sense. It's like when you have a basketball player like Chauncey Billups or something like that, or like Allen Iverson from back in the day, playing ball, and they get crossed up by LeBron James, and people are like, man, that dude is trash. I could ball on that dude. If you said that to his face, he would start laughing. He wouldn't get upset and start and challenge you or anything. He would just start laughing and just keep doing what he's doing. Oh, he's not paying me no attention. Of course not, because you're not making any sense. Yeah, of course Bethesda aren't going to listen to you guys if you are just trashing their games without actually understanding the true nature of the issue. And no, it's not that their games are bad, right? It's that's not what the true nature of the issue is. The true nature of the issue is preference, right? So point I want to make is the game has its own value. It's got all this stuff going on. You can build your ships and crap and have multiple ships, etc., etc. And that in of itself gives this game its own layer of value that just like that bodies most games. Like most games, in terms of the sheer systemic depth that is available, don't even come close to as much crap that a Bethesda game does. Why do you think you don't see Bethesda clones? Any game that is successful in making money has clones. Like, think about Souls games. Think about open world games akin to GTA and things of that nature, with gun run and gun like Saints Row, Sleeping Dogs, all that stuff. Think about battle royales. Think about military shooters. Think about hero shooters, MOBAs. These games have MMOs. These games have people trying to copycat certain formulas because not the games are these practices are financially successful, and they're actually able to do it. Though no, I would argue that nobody has come close to replicating From Software the way that they may have intended to do so, because From Software is very unique in how they approach the Souls formula. There are countless Souls apes out there, and I don't think that's something that anybody could try to dispute. Like, so many of them, most of the time, if a new action game comes out, if it's not a Souls game straight up, then it has Souls-like elements to it, like super duper influence throughout the industry, right? And in these Souls games, you know, like they have all these apes and stuff like that, but Bethesda doesn't. And Bethesda is financially successful. As much crap as people want to give Starfield, the game apparently was a financial success. So they made a lot of money on this game. And you would think that's something that people will be trying to copy from Bethesda since Oblivion and Skyrim, but you don't see Bethesda copycats though. You don't see them trying to cram all this stuff in games because they can't do it. they can't do it. Like, it's sometimes people do something a specific way that you just can't copy. I bet money that people are probably trying to figure out how to copy Larian after Baldur's Gate 3. They're probably looking at their back end, and they're looking at the Divinity Original Sin series, trying to see what they could do. And I bet money that you're not going to see other people come out with games like Larian because they're in a freaking class of their own. Their games are just like, they can't, that's something you can't copy. You just can't. You could try, but it's not going to work out. Too many permutations, too many potential avenues for bugs or for things to get completely out of control in the game. And when you're building something, those are things that you have to think about from the get-go. Can we build this thing without it crashing down on itself and making a giant mess, right? And the main point of all of that is that Bethesda does that, and they have been doing that. It's the same thing with Starfield. Even though Starfield did have its bugs, I would argue that Starfield was the most stable launch that I've seen from a Bethesda game in general. I was in awe just from the fact that how stable this game was at launch. Because I'm aware, how do you get this many variables and you manage to make it where it doesn't crash on itself? I'm talking about variables that surpass most other games. I'm talking about permutations that make, in terms of systemic depth, make Red Dead Redemption 2 look like a puddle by comparison. And I know people are going to be on me for that. This isn't to say that Starfield is better than Red Dead Redemption. That's not what I'm saying. But when it comes to systemic depth and gameplay permutations and things of that nature, the game is on a completely different scale. It's like the moon versus Jupiter. The difference in size of crap going on, right? So, like I said, this is going to be the hottest of takes out there. If anybody even sees the video, there are going to be a lot of angry comments, and I welcome anybody that has anything to say about it. We can have a nice discussion. It doesn't have to be a flame or an argument or anything like that. We can discuss and come to an understanding and learn from each other, right? But yeah, I think Starfield is severely underrated, significantly more powerful of a game than people are giving it credit for. It would be great if some of these games could have health bars and they can actually fight like in a Tekken tournament or something like that. And that way you could visually see like, oh, this game is way stronger than I thought. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. Yes, there are things that people don't like about it, and that's understandable. I have my own gripes about Starfield. I'm not somebody that's just going to gas the game up. I don't like the way that a lot of the equipment and unique items that you find are just reskins of the crap that you could buy at any vendor, just with a different name and maybe a different elemental ability or combination of elemental abilities or something of that nature. And Bethesda have been on that trend since Oblivion. Morrowind was absolutely insane when it came to the amount of unique stuff that you could find. Then Oblivion started to dumb down being able to just go out and find random unique stuff that looks and acts differently. You pretty much had to do like specific quests, like Daedric quests, etc., in order to get these items. And then Skyrim took it even further in the opposite direction of that, right? Where when you're playing Skyrim, even if you do a quest like Red Eagle's Bane, that sword that you get for doing like that quest for Red Eagle, I forgot what it's called. It's pretty much just an ancient Nordic longsword with an enchantment. If you wanted to get something that looks unique, you pretty much had to do a Daedric quest or like the main story or something like that. Like they really started reskinning stuff in Skyrim, and then Fallout 4 with the legendary loot system started to do that even a little bit more. And then we have Starfield, which has almost no unique items from what I have seen, outside of maybe the Mantis armor. I have not found anything else that's like completely unique looking, legendary looking stuff, right? So this game, that is something that's very annoying. I don't like that, right? I know a lot of people don't like the loading screens. I'm not going to discuss the theory behind that in this one, but okay, fine, I understand that, right? Some of my other gripes with Starfield are, I would like to have seen more, like, ruins or like dungeons and things of that nature that you can go through and find these cool little puzzles or story teases or bits about the true nature of things. And I know a lot of people are probably in the same boat about that. There are some things that I would like to see, but my disappointments are my own. And I'm able to put those aside to try and see what the game for what it is. And what Bethesda have been trying to do and the direction that they are going is they're trying to go in the direction of creation. They want people to be able to craft and create things. And that adds a completely different, larger scale to the game in general. It's going to be absolutely unbelievably difficult to have the things that they had in the past on top of all of these new creative systems that they're trying to create. So these are some of the things, like, being able to make ships outposts and things of that nature. The anti-gravity with the combat and stuff like that. Right. These are systems and things that other AAA major RPGs don't even come close to doing, taking place across multiple different locations. Even though that does yield loading screens, it's still unique in and of itself. Right. So, yeah, Starfield does things that do on other games. So to just say that it's objectively worse than its competition just doesn't make any sense, because it's quite clear what they're trying to do, at least to me. So, but then again, I've had a lot of intel and done a lot of research over years. I've even seen people drop tips and inside information long before we even got like the first trailer for Starfield saying what it was going to be, and they were right on the money about it, right? Seeing these at random forums and stuff like that, came across them by luck and stuff, and yeah, pretty much they were right on the money about it. And this game has it has its own unique things about it that stand out, and that's just the truth. So, people give Bethesda a lot of crap. I think people need to calm down and try to come to understand what the true issue is. The true issue is that people don't like the direction that Bethesda's going, which is fine. But if you want them to change, you got to be able to acknowledge and understand the situation and then communicate that diplomatically. If enough people, a large portion of the fan base or the audience, comes together and says, hey guys, we understand now what you guys were trying to do, but what we want to see from you guys is different. As your audience, we don't care about being able to create structures and spaceships and stuff. We want We don't care about experiences where we live in the world and keep coming back and doing fetch quests forever and ever and ever until we die. We like it, like if you know Naruto, if you've ever watched Naruto, Data and Sorcery, they're both artists, but they have a different approach. Sorcery believes art is something that's forever, that should be put on a pedestal and always be there until the end of time. And Datara thinks that art is an explosion. It's something that is beautiful in its time and it disappears, right? Obviously, Bethesda's going for the sorcery approach. They want art. They want a game that lasts forever, that everybody can just keep coming back, modding, and just keep playing forever. So they're building it in such a way that gives it that specific edge that they're trying to get. They want people to just live in the world and just come here, sit down, talk to their spouse, and then go on about their actual real life, and then come back later and go to a bar and sit down and pretend that you're having a dining out or a dinner date or something like that, right? Like it, that's what they want. But much of the audience, truthfully, and I'm pretty sure you can all probably agree with this, is that most of you are like Datara. Art is an explosion. It's something where you go and play it, you get the enjoyment out of that experience for that time, and then you move on, right? That's what a lot of people want from Bethesda. And I think if people really want them to listen, acknowledge their capabilities, understand the situation, explain to them that's not what your audience wants, guys. We don't want to create stuff. We don't want outposts and stuff. What we care about is we want to look at what Baldur's Gate is doing, Kingdom Come, The Witcher, all these games. Look at what they're doing. You make choices, the choices have an impact. We want a story that has ups and downs, that has more negative, effed up energy to it. We want a game that has deeper mechanics, that rewards the players for their time doing and exploring certain things. We want a more focused game in one or two specific areas that is handcrafted, where we can go to, find a cool quest, find some cool, unique, legendary item or something like that, and then use it throughout our journey and stuff like that. Make this clear to them in a diplomatic fashion without constantly yelling that they need to fire Todd Howard and Emil Paglio and things of that nature, and saying that that they don't know what they're doing and that they're trash and that Bethesda can't make games anymore and that they're completely surpassed. Bethesda are stubborn. They are champions amongst the gaming industry. They're literal Hall of Famers, multiple time Game of the Year award-winning studio, right? Constantly, up until Fallout 4, they were always raising the bar with every single game that they made, and everybody else in the industry took notice of it, right? They're not going to listen to you if you just say that their game is trash. Like I said with the basketball example, if you say that Allen Iverson is trash because he couldn't keep up with LeBron James, that don't make sense. If you say that you could ball on one of these NBA players because they are struggling against another player, there's levels to this. Anybody in the NBA is going to ball on most people that aren't in the NBA, right? Like it's a complete mismatch, actually. So like, people need to calm down with that. They're not going to listen to you if you talk to them like they're trash. Their resolve is going to be sharpened, and they're going to keep doing what they want to do. If you want to see a change, I'm telling you guys, actually diplomatically come to them and say, and tell them politely what you guys want to see. And if enough people do it, a large number of people make that clear, make videos, make articles that don't bash and trash their games, and just say, here, this is what we want to see from your games. We know that you're capable of doing it. They will do it. I promise you they will. And if they don't do it, then that's on them, right? You tried to tell them. Then if they still don't do what you guys are requesting, just don't buy it. Buy the studios that are doing the stuff that you want, and that might force them to think about it a little bit more, right? But communicate that effectively. Starfield, I don't think, is a trash game. It's a game that has its weaknesses, but weaknesses and strength in my book are two different sides of the same coin. Without the reason why certain things has the strength is because of the weakness. The reason why the hammer is good at striking nails and causing blunt damage is because it is not good at cutting. If it was good at cutting, it would not be as good at striking things and driving nails, right? The weaknesses and the strength are two sides of the same coin. This game has its weaknesses. Baldur's Gate 3 does. The Witcher 3 does. All of them have their weaknesses, but it's because of those weaknesses that they have the strength that they possess. And that's pretty much all that I wanted to say in this particular video. Like I said, anybody that wants to discuss it, by all means, go in the comment section. I will read pretty much every single comment, and I will engage as long as it's respectful for the most part. And we can have a discussion about it, and you can tell me your thoughts and things of that nature, and I will honestly hear them out, because people might think that I'm a Bethesda apologist or something like that. But if you've seen me in on these channels in the comment section or in these websites, on these articles, quote unquote, arguing or defending or white knighting this game, as people like to say, or coping, or whatever, I'm trying to help you guys. I'm trying to offer all the knowledge and stuff that I have gained and help you to get what you want from Bethesda or studios in general. You can do it without dogpiling their games, without killing their sales by review bombing and things of that nature. You don't have to do all of that. All you have to do is recognize what's happening and in a diplomatic fashion, just explain to the studios what you want. Get a large number of people to do that, and I promise you, you will see the changes that you want. You know, it's just hard to ignore those that are genuinely supporting you and aren't just trying to take stuff from you and just to, like, you know, just so that they can fulfill themselves, and then they could care less about you. They just want something that you want. If you support Bethesda body and soul, so to speak, I promise you that they will make the changes that you want. They will, but it's got to start with us. It's not just them. Sure, there are some things that they could do, quote unquote, better in order to meet the audience's ideal expectations, but that starts with us. We got to stop always expecting other people or other companies to do better until we're willing to do better ourselves, right? But that's all I got. That's going to be Sage Armageddon. I'm coming to you with this video on Starfield. Let me know if you want a review of Starfield or a more in-depth discussion. I'm more than willing to do that. But thank you to anyone that was willing to listen to this long rant. Like the video if you like it. Subscribe if you're willing. This is going to be Sage Armageddon signing out, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care.